All right. On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, The Athletic takes some of the Avalanche unrestricted free agents that we were talking about yesterday and give some projections on what their next contract might look like. What do we think? Let's talk about it. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche, Instagram, and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, LockedOnAvalanche@gmail.com. And make sure you're following us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you're subscribed to our subtext as well. Because when you do chat with Kyle and I one-on-one, we get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. And because yesterday went a little bit long, we didn't get to our subtext people. So we will discuss what they thought about the Avalanche free agents, who they would like to bring back, all that fun stuff. And that's kind of where we're going to start today, Kyle. We'll get to the Jonathan Drouin grade in a little bit. And then a kind of a weird poll that was out there, which I just thought was kind of funny. So we'll discuss that a little bit later. But let's continue with the free agents, at least three of them that we're going to mention, because in The Athletic, if you subscribe to it, which Kyle and I do, they put up, I think it was like 40 or 50, maybe a little bit less than that, unrestricted free agents that are about to hit the market. And they kind of give their projections on where they thought or where they think some of these guys, not where they're going to sign, but what the contract is going to look like. So the three that they had on their list was Jonathan Drouin, Yakov Trenin, and Sean Walker. So should we just dive right into these, sir? Because I put it up on Twitter X, and you got difference of opinion on some of this stuff. What's your before we throw out what the numbers are? What was your take on them?
Looking at them initially, and it's hard to wrap your mind around this with all the pieces that are involved around this team and what you're bringing in and what you're going to have to pay. But you have to look at importance, and we'll get to Drouin and what he meant to this team last year in just a little bit. But it would have to be it's interesting you put Sean Walker last, because honestly, right behind Drouin, I want Sean Walker back. And I saw the comments about him being not that great. He disappeared. He had left a lot on the table in the playoffs. But with the defensive pieces that you might be missing next year with Jack Johnson, I would like a Sean Walker. I think he is.
I would too, but I just think we'll get to his number, because you'll see how it might it can't fit. And we talked about it yesterday with the Avs, and go watch that episode yesterday if you have not yet, because we use the cap friendly roster builder, and we just see how difficult it is going to be for the Avs to bring all these guys back. And these three, I would say, are probably, and not counting Casey Middlestat because he's your restricted free agent. As far as your unrestricteds go, these three are probably your would be ranked as like 1, 2, and 3, however you want to rank them. And we'll start with probably the low guy on that poll, and that's Yakov Trenin. So they did list 50 of them, by the way, at The Athletic. They have him as number 46, so right towards the bottom of that list. But their projection on Yakov Trenin is a 4-year deal for $3.356 million. And if you remember, if you did listen to yesterday's episode, he's one of the guys we brought up. He made this past year 1.7. So they're basically doubling his money. And I threw out, it was like a 2.5 or as high as 3 for him, which I wouldn't really go. They have him over that. And I think, is this people need to get used to? I know it's only $4 million going up in the cap, but the cap going up. So some numbers might go up here. but you still think that is a little bit too much for a Trenin contract?
Yeah, and even if he was coming back at that 1.7, this would be a conversation to still have because again, this is one player, and we talked about the money yesterday on yesterday's episode. You have to put there was unless you're calling up Eagles, you have to put there's some holes on this roster with everybody that's leaving, and if everybody's going to be getting, I mean, good grief, we're talking about Trenin here, and if he's getting double pay because of the quote unquote avalanche effect, what is everybody else going to look like? And it's making it very difficult to put this team together without relying on the Eagles. And $3 million for Trenin, he was nice, he was great.
Yeah.
Over 3? Come on.
I don't think he's going to get an increase because of anything he did on the Avalanche. I thought he did fine. I liked what he did, but I don't think it's people are looking at him like, oh man, he really like took the reins and ran with it since he was on the Avalanche. I just think that he's a valuable piece to people. And I think it is the cap just going up a little bit. And some teams have a little bit more to spend. Maybe a team that is not, I say this, knowing most teams are, but maybe a team that's not so cap strapped that just need to like fill a hole and he's the perfect guy and they have a little bit extra money to spend. Hey, why not? I don't know who that team is. I'm not familiar with every single team's cap situation right now, but maybe there is that team out there that can throw him a little bit extra. And I think that's the other thing you have to look at. That number is not what the Avalanche can sign him for. That is what the going rate across the league. Someone out there could potentially sign him for that much. I think that is a little bit over what his worth is, but I don't think it's that far off. It was 1.7. I think is very low for him. I think it's very low. I'm in the 2.5 range. They're going almost another million higher than that, which is too rich for me. It's too rich for the Avalanche, but I can almost guarantee you it's not going to be for some team that thinks that he fits the bill.
And for Trenin, I mean, how good is it going to get? So you can easily expect him to go chase the money because is it going to get any better from here? You don't know. So I don't. I would anticipate that being kind of a watch him walk out the door kind of situation.
Yeah, I think they would love him back, but I just don't think the price is going to be right for him. Just moving up this list, Jonathan Drouin is number 29. Obviously, he had the 1-year deal with the Avs for $825,000. Ended up being a steal. That was at the beginning of the year. It was like, how are we going to view this thing at the end of the year? Definitely a steal. His projection here for the Athletic, a 4-year deal. And that's kind of what we were throwing around in our episode yesterday. At $4.759 million. And I think when we did our mock thing, we put him in at 3.5. And that's only because you and I met in the middle. Because you were on like the lower end of the 3s, I think. I was right around here. I was right around 4.5, which is the high end for me. I'd be comfortable in between 4 to 4.5. So they have him where I'm thinking they have him at 4.75. So they have him over the 4.5. Again, that is not what the Avalanche is not doing that based on the numbers that the Avalanche will pay him. We know that number is going to have to be lower.
Oh, yeah.
Or we know that it's going to have to fall within that 4 to 4, maybe 3.5 to 4.5 in that million range. And could he go somewhere else and get 4.7? Probably. And based on just one season, that's pretty crazy to me that it goes up by that much. But that's the state of sports. It's what have you done for me lately? And there's so many teams out there that probably think the 1 year in Colorado with the Avalanche, he's turned the corner. We'll give him that much money.
Yeah, and it's one of those situations you see you can't really base a lot of Drouin's output on his time in Montreal because he didn't have that caliber around him, but you see what pieces around Drouin can do with him and what he can do to those pieces. So I would see him walking for 5 to a team like a Detroit, like to a like a Ducks team, a Devils team. It's just one of those. He's a piece that not only can provide you points, but can raise the tide for all ships that are on that line.
Maybe. We don't know. We know he can on the Avalanche.
That's true.
But can he do that somewhere else? That is still a question mark. It's a big question mark. So again, it's gonna be one of the more fascinating contracts out there. And I just get a good feeling that he wants to stay here. He knows, he had it rough for a long period of time. And I know it's only 1 year, but I think he just feels good about what this team. And I think he will. I think he will. I just have a gut feeling he'll take a little bit less. And if they can come somewhere in that 4 million, in between 4 and 4.5, I just feel like he doesn't say no to go somewhere else to make an extra $500,000.
And playing with
I don't know.
Nathan McKinnon must make things easier.
That's a big boon right there. Absolutely. And then finally on here at 23, so a few above Drouin, is Sean Walker. His last deal that's expiring now, obviously, was a 4-year, $2.65 million contract. Excuse me. And his projection with the Athletic is a 5-year, $4.965 million contract, just shy of $5 million per year, which is a lot of what I've been hearing where he is going to be. And again, I just think how the Avalanche, how they're set up right now on defense with the 4 guys that they have locked in. I just don't feel like there's room for him, and it's just not going to work. He was a rental. They got what they needed from him, and I think he's out the door.
Yeah, all those kind words I said about Sean Walker to lead this segment was basically me telling him goodbye. For that money, it's just not happening. You can't. And he's going to get it, and he's going to be a valuable piece wherever he lands.
I think he will be. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see where he goes. Some people even saying he could go right back to Philly if he wants to. Could happen. And if that happens, that's a big win for Philly in this overall deal. So we'll have to see. I want to get to some of the subtext people that commented yesterday when we were talking about this a little bit in more detail. So this is from Easton. Excluding RFAs, I'd like to keep Drouin, Trenin, and Walker. Hey, how about that? I think they fit the Avs identity fairly well. Cogs, JJ, Duhaime, and Kivy can walk. I think Cogs and JJ are at the end of their careers. Duhaime never sent any messages to anyone during the playoffs, and Kivy is just a bottom 6 forward. Jones is the only one I'm unsure about. He was great fill-in regular season, but postseason choked a bit. I can't disagree with really any of that. Sure, I'd love to have those 3 guys that we just talked back, but I think we kind of know that it's not feasible to bring all 3 of those guys back.
I would hold on to Kivy a little bit more. I wouldn't be so easy to let him walk because especially what his contract's going to look like, but I understand everything else.
Agreed. I did like what Kivy Ronta brought to you. Agreed. Vargar, I think the real question is Drouin. He's never lived up to his 3rd overall draft status. This season playing with Halifax buddy Nate was clearly one of his 2 best in his 10 season. If he goes anywhere else, he's going to be a 10 goal, 30 assist range. He knows this is his best chance to win a cup and put up respectable numbers. As far as a deal for him, he says, I can't see any more between 3.5 to 4 million for him. I mean, 3.5 I think is on the very low end for him. Again, I feel like if they're in the 4 to 4.5, I think he's good with that.
Yeah, I have further comments on the Drouin situation in just a little bit.
Yes, we're going to get to his grade here in 1 second. I want to get Coy in here. Says keep Middlestat. Drouin if the price is right, but he doesn't think so. So Duhaime, he says drop. Cogliano, keep if it's less than 1 million. Kivy Ronta, keep him. I love him on the 4th line. Trenin, he says drop him. He's just listing these bullet points. It's great. Jack Johnson, drop, but they'll probably keep him. And Sean Walker, give him 1 more year if reasonable. So many Eagles, but I can't say I have opinions on them. Then he says, I think Middlestat will be 5x7 or an 8x5. And then he said, scratch that. 8 years, 7.25 for Middlestat. That's a little high, and I don't think the Avalanche are going to go that high.
No, 8.5 sounds interesting.
But I don't. I mean,
but that's a lot.
It is very interesting. It is,
and not a lot of sample size to evaluate.
No, you'd have to really be comfortable. I mean, you might give him that, like, because he's an RFA. You might give him that when he's a UFA in an 8-year deal. But I don't even know if you can. Can you give a a restricted 8 years? I don't know. Maybe you can. I think you can.
I'd
I
say
don't know.
just
Whatever it is, but
bridge him if you have to, and then provide
mm,
it if he performs.
yeah, I think you go the 8 route when he's and if he's proven himself, and then he becomes an unrestricted. That's kind of when you throw the 8 out there. I think you can give an 8 if it's restricted. I don't see why you can't. But all right, so we're talking about Jonathan and Drouin a lot here, and we're going to get to his season grade from us, the subtext people, and the social media crew as well. We're going to do that right after this. All right, let's hear from Game Time. It makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier, and prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off with killer last minute deals, all in pricing, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Some of the things that we love about the Game Time app: they have priority last minute deals. You can save up to 60% off when you buy last minute tickets for sporting events, concerts, comedy, and theater. They have those flash deals, the zone deals, all in pricing. The price you see is the price that you pay. No surprise fees at checkout. And they have Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Lowest price guaranteed. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a price somewhere else for cheaper. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code Locked On NHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. So again, create the account and redeem the code Locked On NHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. It's Jonathan Drouin Day, apparently, here at Locked On Avalanche. So we're making our way through the season grades, doing them alphabetically, and he is up next. So if you're watching over on YouTube, there it is. I gave him a B+. Kyle gave him a straight A. YouTube, 56% went A. Twitter, X went 62% A. Instagram went 55% A. We had a tie over on Threads, 45% each for A and B. So me and half the people over on Threads are the only people that went in the B range, but I did right up to the edge of that A and gave him a B+ because I can do that. People on social media can't. So I guess if you average out the Threads, maybe it's a B+, but or A-, however you want to do that. But go ahead, talk about your grade.
I mean, honestly, let's just put it right here. 56 points on a little over $800,000. That right there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get any better than that. And off what you were, all the question marks when it came to Drouin coming into this year, he outperformed every one of them. He was a vital piece of this team and was missed when he wasn't there. I was astounded. I was very skeptical when he came in. I was didn't know how this would work, if he was going to be one of those that were dealt. And he was a vital member of this team, added an extra little layer of spice to Nathan MacKinnon's play and a little bit of that familiarity. I thought he was exceptional. And because of this play, he has probably priced himself out of Colorado.
I wouldn't go that far yet. We've been talking about him a lot. I don't think he could very well have priced himself out. Sure. I mean, we are talking about how if he stays in Colorado, he might have to take a little, take a little bit off the top. But we'll see on that. But you're right, man. You just look at the contract and sure, he absolutely outplayed that. My not getting him in that A range is because he honestly didn't do it for the entirety of the season. And is that being a little bit too difficult on him? Maybe, because, you got a guy who hasn't lived up to expectations, comes into a brand new team, new system. Sure, it's going to take you some time to get the vibe and get how a new system works and runs. And once he got comfortable in that point, you saw the difference. But there was a time, like in the beginning of the season, like let's not forget, he was healthy scratched. So he struggled mightily in the beginning. Were we saying like, oh, this just isn't working? I'm sure there were some people kind of chirping about that, like, oh, it's not working out. What are we doing? But the Avs, if nothing else, as a franchise, are patient, and I think that we're going to give him that full year. You can pay him anything, so why not give him that full year to see what you really have? And I'm glad they did, because as the season went on, you saw the change. You saw it. So, because he played so much on a top line or top six role, even on your top line role. And what do you end up 56 points on the season? Yeah. I would expect a little more from you point wise when you're playing and you're playing on the power play a lot. So I think that just shows you how much of a struggle it was early in the season for him to really have a great finish to the season and have only 56 points when most of the time you're playing with either, Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, a lot of times Valenchuskin, whoever it is, like you're playing with the as best players and getting first group power play minutes. I would want to see a little bit more, which is kind of why I'm even holding to a higher standard, when maybe that's a little bit unfair, because when he came in, you really weren't expecting him to do all that much. And I think he exceeded those expectations. But if he had done that for the duration of the season, it would have been easy A for me. But I can't just forget about the little bit of struggle that he had. You have to take that into account, because this is a season grade. This is not a end of the year season grade or from, the All-Star break on. This is for the full season. And because he did have some moments of iffy play, for me, just the grade comes down just a touch. And that's why he's in the B+ range for me.
And I think it's fascinating. This is coming on the heels of our Ross Colton grade, because that was the exact same thing I was saying about Ross Colton. And Ross Colton, to me, he stalled out towards the end of the year and just kind of stayed in that second, third gear. And Drouin finally got, with all his struggles and being scratched and working his way up and down the lines, he found his footing and where he belonged. And he really excelled and provided points that you didn't think he was going to reach these levels. He hasn't. And it's been a long time since he was in the 50 range. And I gave him this grade just a flat A, because he surpassed everything, all the question marks, the scratches. Just he constantly built on his confidence and his role. And he found a place on this team where if he comes back, you know exactly what he's going to bring. Comparison to Ross Colton, if you have so many things that you can expect him to do and all the pomp and circumstance for Colton coming in, Drouin was the opposite. You didn't know. And it was kind of, if it doesn't happen, that's fine. You're not wasting money. But he became one of the biggest steals of the year.
That's why I would love for him to come back and see, now his confidence is back. Clearly, he knows how this system runs. He knows his role in it. So now, from game one, day one next year, if he's in an Avalanche uniform, I look forward to a full season of him. Like no question marks going into the season, because there was a ton going into this last season, and by the end of the year, we kind of forgot about those. So I'm really excited to see if he comes back number wise, what he can do for a full year.
Yeah,
on a hopefully maybe on a top six role. So. Would be interesting to see. So, I mean, I think he played great.
Yeah,
played great. Huge part of what they were doing this year, and you like seeing stories like this, man. You like seeing stories of guys, third overall pick, has not lived up to it. I'm not saying he's now shed that title of not living up to a third overall pick. He hasn't, but you just like seeing guys put together a year that has the ability and has the skill, and hopefully, even though it's 10 years and plus into his career, is maybe turning that corner and can finish out a career and be productive where he really wasn't before this. You like seeing that stuff.
All that conversation we had about money and cap, if you took this Drouin situation and said you could get 56 points spending less than $1 million on a player, that's GM of the year type moves. So that it worked out for the Avs in that way, but he hasn't followed up 50-point seasons the best in his career. The question marks are still out there for Drouin, what he will do next year.
You think the Avs are kicking themselves for not doing a 2-year deal for 800 and whatever it was?
Absolutely.
And maybe it was him. Maybe it was him betting on himself, saying, "No, I'm only going to take the 1 year." I don't know. It could have went both ways. Both agreed on the one, but oh yeah, the Avs right now are being like, we should have just done 2 years at this because we'd be sitting pretty right now with that contract. Over on subtext, we got Madam Battleaxe. She says, "Yippee! I am excited for this one. I was very suspect of Drouin. I didn't know who he was or his talent, and he had a shaky start and couldn't get the system immediately. But when he did, he really showed that he was much more than McKinnon's friend from childhood. It really proved he is an Av, and even with the injury, put up some noticeable numbers on the board. Hope he comes back." She didn't say he's easy on the eyes either, so maybe she doesn't really have a thing for Drouin. So
that's a B minus.
Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, she gave him an A, by the way. I don't know if I said the grade, but I'm surprised she didn't ding him if he's not easy on the eyes for Miss Battleaxe. This is Vargar. Let's start. If he wants more than 3.5 million, let him walk. He will return to his normal mediocrity elsewhere. He knows he fits in here. If not, let him chase the money and get benched with another team. He was a solid B plus. He found some Halifax magic with Nate. That's from Vargar.
That's not a bad idea. Let him go and not be successful somewhere else. Pick him up at the trade deadline
and come back. Yeah. And finally, Easton. What an exciting year for JD. Started so rough, and I lost some faith in him after his first 20 games. Just absolutely found his flow. I'm going to go with an A minus is what he gives him. I think we're all in agreement that we love some Jonathan Drouin and would absolutely love to have him back. So time will tell. Obviously, we have no idea if that is going to be the case, but I think most people are in agreement that if he's back, it makes you just feel better about the Avs' chances for next year. And that's crazy to say.
Yeah.
In a hockey season that we even going into the playoffs, it was like when he was injured and he came back, we're like, wow, oh, like we're that much better now because Jonathan Drouin is on our lineup. If you told me I'd be saying that at the beginning of the year, I'd be saying that at the end of the year, I would have said you're probably a little bit crazy.
Yeah,
but that's where the Avalanche were.
If you told me Jonathan Drouin would make me feel better about the Colorado Avalanche in 2024, 2025, that says a lot.
It's crazy. So, yeah. So that's the grade for Jonathan Drouin. One more bit of business that we are going to get to, and that is a weird poll that was taken. And this is over at casino.org. I didn't know that was a website. I really don't know what they do.
Organization of casinos.
I guess so. They did a poll that wanted to find the most quote unquote ice cold fans. And what they mean by that is like aggressive fans. So they did a weighted criteria that weighed the aggression index, which is frequency of booing, cheering for the opposing team's injuries, engaging in poor behaviors, trash talking on the opposing team's social media platforms, unapologetic towards past poor behaviors, and lack of empathy for the opposing team's losses, and self-reflecting rating on their own fan base's sportsmanship quality. However you take all that stuff and put it into a blender and come out with scores, they did it. They only polled 3,000 fans, not per fan base, just 3,000 total NHL fans. I don't know if those were all split up evenly within the fan. That's what I'm saying. This is very just subjective, but it's fun and then it's funny. So however they did it, 3,000 fans, even though there's way more than that across the continents, they came up with a score for each team. And according to this, the most ice cold or aggressive fan base in the NHL is the Chicago Blackhawks. They have a score of 96.9%. At number 2, with 94%, it's not that far behind Chicago Blackhawks, it's the Colorado Avalanche.
Okay.
When I saw this, I was like, and how I found this was it was actually on an Islanders website because they were touting how the Islanders were like second to last in this. So they're one of the warmest fan bases. So I saw that and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Let me go see where the Avalanche. Imagine my surprise where I saw the Avalanche were second. And again, let me just remind you, this is for not caring about other teams' injuries. Really? Like, remember the game against Dallas when what's his name sliced his hand open?
Yeah,
You go on social media and you saw all Avalanche fans really concerned and hoping that he was okay. I know it's just one instant, but this surprised me. What do you think?
and listening to those metrics on how they gauge the level of aggression, and to quote the Wise Prophets Outcast, it makes you ice cold. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting the Avs would be up at number 2 because I always viewed the Avalanche as a kinder, more understanding fan base. I think they're more brutal to the Avalanche than any other fan base.
That's
I
a good point.
I think they're more self-destructive than they are getting out there and causing stuff with other fan bases, where that's not the norm when it comes to especially the playoffs. Like Dallas fans, they're loud. Vegas fans, they're something. Colorado just kind of beats up on themselves and don't bother anybody.
You mentioned Vegas. Vegas is fourth to last on this. And we've had some interaction with Vegas fans. They're tough. They are tough. So again, I don't really agree with any of this. I think it's kind of in reality, I think most fan bases are all about equal. You know what I mean? Like they have the Blackhawks at 96.9%. The warmest or nicest fan base according to this is the Ottawa Senators at 5.5. I cannot believe that there's that much of a difference between Blackhawk fans and Senator fans. I'm not trying to say Senator fans are terrible. I'm just saying, like, I think it's around equal of aggressiveness when it comes to fan bases. And do I think like walking into where Chicago plays and you're just gonna if you read something like this, you feel like if I go watch a game in Chicago and I'm wearing another team's uniform, I'm going to get beat up. Where if I walk into Ottawa, they're going to be shaking my hand and putting their arms around me. I'm not buying that. I think most of the fan bases across the NHL and all sports are about equal in their aggression, and I'm using air quotes, towards other fans and other teams. I don't think it's this much of a difference.
And I'm sitting here thinking about this. When did Chicago cheer or have 96% of anything this year? Well, like, do they think that screaming Connor Bedard is like to signal a war? Because that's the only thing I heard out of Chicago. I don't even think they had a full barn this year.
That's a good point. Yeah.
When did they have 96% in one direction on anything, let alone booing some fan base or an injury?
Yeah. Especially for this year. I think Blackhawk fans are fully embracing the rebuild and not expecting anything. So why would they be so aggressive towards other fans coming in to their arena, especially for this season? That's why I think this thing is just so insanely flawed, but it's still kind of just funny and fun to talk about. But I have some serious issues with it. Am I saying Colorado Avalanche fans are saints? No, there's every single fan base has people that are just way too aggressive. And Avalanche fans are no different. But Senator fans are not immune from this. Makes it seem like all Senator fans are just like the nicest people in the world, and they're not going to say anything mean to you, and if they do, immediately apologize. Like fans are not built that way.
Well, Ottawa fans were being nice just so Ryan Reynolds would buy the team.
We all know how that went. Third in here is the New York Rangers. And knowing New York fans, that is 100% accurate. So everything about this thing is false except for that part. That part is probably true. So,
yeah, I would put the Flyers at number 1 and then put Rangers at 2. And then
that's a great point. Flyer fans are brutal. Where are they on here? I'm looking for them on this thing.
If you tell me they are at 29,
no.
I'm going to tell you throw your computer in the trash.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're 9th. So they're in the top 10. They're in
Sure.
top 10. Your New Jersey Devils are number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they're number 6.
Please, they are
Right
just as
behind the Bruins.
self-destructive as Colorado.
Yeah. So it is what it is. It's a fun thing. Don't read too much into it. But whatever. It's fun to discuss. Are you that bad, Avalanche fans? I do not think so. So
Shame.
don't worry
Shame.
all right, that is going to wrap it up for today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. We should be back tomorrow. I have a couple things I have to do out of town, but I might be back in time so we can record another fun episode for everybody. Until then, he is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. Thank you for making the Locked On Avalanche podcast your first listen of the day, and we will see you guys later.